not to get too distracted. And at the same time, I know that you're there. It's so good to relax. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining today. So great that you're here, that you made it, that you take time to participate in this spiritual healing practice. And that's really lovely. Well, there's more. And so today, there's the idea of the happy dream, the idea of my world. And so apparently something is changing in how you perceive the world. So how you think about the world, it changes too. So the world might change too by doing so. And yeah, that is a very individual process. I know that for sure. So the great thing that we look at today is this. It's like you might not be conscious aware that what I'm going to share was in the Ur-text of A Course in Miracles, for instance, and that you did not know it was even in there. And that has to do with the peace that passes understanding. And we're very familiar, like Joel uses it all the time, the peace that passeth understanding. I cannot even pronounce it right, passeth. So it's like an old English kind of word, and it is also the past in which the understanding of the peace of God passes your understanding. But, and this is really like news to me, it's like beautiful, it's so great, is this, the peace that passes understanding was the past. The peace that you can understand is right now. I love that. So I say dedicate this meditation that we're going to do to that, exactly that. It's like the peace that passes understanding was related to the past, really like this. You can understand the peace of God now. And you get all the support to get this into your system, so to speak, today. So there's relaxation. I brought some of the sounds with me from Cyprus. Imagine like great winter temperatures, so warm that you could swim in the ocean or in the sea, and no wind. The sun is shining brightly, so incredibly peaceful, unbelievable, but understandable. And so I brought some of these sounds with me and used it in this meditation. And just to give that away, because to me it was a great experience, and it still is. It's like a great experience for a deep sense of peace, just literally like swimming in the peace of God. And the beautiful action that is in this meditation is so beautiful. Like that what is in this meditation is this. It's like God gives you all of his love, like on a continuing basis. What is your activity? Giving that to your Father. It's like you give that to your Father. Oh my God. So it's like that is something you can very well understand and practice at the same time. This is all the healing that you can possibly imagine. This is all that really happens. Like, that's what I love about it. So we're going to practice this and take some 20 minutes or so to do this. So it's like, wow, that's world news. It's wonderful. The peace that you can actually understand. So I'm sharing that with you as a total presence, like with all these so-called words or ideas that we share. Don't forget, like the incredible immensity of the experience itself. And I'm not exaggerating, of course. It's like, no, it is, oh my God, it is undescribable what is being offered and what you can receive in this moment. So open up your consciousness as wide as possible to receive literally this immensity. Be completely overwhelmed with it. Then you know there's a God. Then you know that you love God with all of your heart. Then you know that God is loving you with all of his being all the time. So this immensity is really what we're celebrating today. And this is really what, say, you dream first and then you actually awaken to it. You actually awaken to this love's presence that is immense, has nothing to do with any idea that you hold about love or peace. So that's so great. Anyway, so I said that. The peace of God passeth your understanding only in the past. Yet here it is, and you can understand it now. God loves his Son forever, and his Son returns his Father's love forever. The real world is the way that leads you to remembrance of this one thing that is wholly true and wholly yours. For all else you have lent yourself in time, and it will fade. But this one thing is always yours, being the gift of God unto his Son. Your one reality was given you, and by it God created you as one with him. You will first dream of peace and then awaken to it. Your first exchange of what you made for what you want is the exchange of nightmares for the happy dreams of love.
La paix de Dieu dépasse votre entendement, seulement dans le passé. Mais elle est là, et vous pouvez la comprendre maintenant. Dieu aime son Fils pour toujours, et son Fils renvoie l'amour de son Père pour toujours. Le monde réel est le chemin qui vous conduit à vous souvenir de cette seule chose qui est entièrement vraie et qui est entièrement la vôtre. Pour tout le reste, tu t'es laissé aller au temps et cela s'estompera. Mais cette seule chose est toujours à toi, car elle est le don de Dieu à son Fils. Votre unique réalité vous a été donnée, et c'est par elle que Dieu vous a créé comme un seul être avec lui. Vous allez d'abord rêver de la paix, puis vous réveiller votre premier échange de ce que vous avez fabriqué contre ce que vous voulez et l'échange des cauchemars pour les rêves heureux de l'amour.
Okay. Great. Thank you for joining in the meditation. It's really, really lovely. I love it. And thank you, Michelle, for sharing your words in French. Thank you so much. It's like this, it's a beautiful start to look at your life or your, say, process or your place in this moment, and see that the peace of God can be experienced now. Now I'm not going to say too much about that, but it is actually like you can return to that all the time. This is really why it becomes a happy dream, returning back to the peace of mind, knowing that you always have a choice to let go, to release, to let go. No, it's not that. No, I missed it. I choose peace above anything else. Like, I really want peace and nothing else. I let go of what I think is right. I let go of what I think should happen now or how this is supposed to look, because I recognize I have no clue, no idea, and I don't know what the next step is. I simply don't know. And which is the greatest practice, of course, because by opening up and leaving it open, anything can happen. And that's, yeah, that's where the peace will come from. Like, the peace comes from the openness to receive what is given in the moment, not by you determining it. We know what happens when you determine things. Like, that's not exciting anymore. That's you could say old school. That's old school. That's over. You have been doing that. So the spiritual healing practice really is this, is that you, in fact, put down your toys that you have been entertaining yourself with while you were asleep, like as a sleepy child, playing with the toys, not even knowing what it's doing. It's so tired. It just does things the same, whatever, keeps repeating something, while it absolutely does not know what it is doing. Now that you want to be replaced by dreams of love. And when can you experience love? That can only happen now. It has nothing to do with your conditions in which that can occur, or the circumstances which are necessary for that to occur, or the persons around you that you think that you need in order for that to occur. Like, no, none of that. Like, love is love. It has nothing to do with anything else in that sense. It is, yeah, the love that is given you in this moment by being open, and the love that you give in this moment because you're open. You don't defend yourself. You don't protect yourself. What do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? So this is our practice with the spiritual healing, you could say. In fact, it all comes down to that. And now this is being described by many of us. And so I have two pretty short, like 8-minute talks, maybe a little bit shorter. One of Joel Goldsmith, he talks about the fruitage of knowing God aright, and I say distilled a segment out of that I love to share with you. And so also later on we will listen to Master Teacher. He's teaching, in fact, from lesson 166, which is I'm entrusted with the gifts of God. So this is all in the same league, in the sense of receiving in this moment, not some other time, in this moment, a peace that you can understand, which is like a manifestation of your happy dream, even though you find yourself in a dream. It's like this peace comes to you more and more and more by practicing this, and at a certain point you completely awaken to it. It doesn't have an opposite anymore. You awaken, you see that you're that and not anything else. So on our way to that, or in the middle of the total experience of that, we listen to first to Joel Goldsmith, and after that to Master Teacher. All right, so this is just say as illustrations, you could say illustrations of, in fact, the happy dream.
To know God aright means actually to know the name and the identity of God. And of course, to know the nature of God and its functioning. Now, as long as a person believes that they can pray to a God for something, they are not knowing God aright. Or, if they believe that God is withholding something that by means of prayer He is going to let loose of, they are not knowing God aright. Or, if an individual believes that God can do something this very minute which God isn't already doing, they do not know God aright. Or, if an individual believes that there are certain holy people that can make God do something, they are not knowing God aright. In other words, all religious teaching separates man from God. Because all of religious teaching tends to make man believe that there is some kind of a God somewhere that can be influenced by man, by his prayers, by his sacrifices, by his tithings. They do not remember the Master saying, God has no pleasure in your sacrifices, or his statement that man was not made for the Sabbath was made for man. God cannot be influenced by man, not even by a holy man. God can never be induced to do something. God already is. And God already is doing. You might look outside and see black night out there, but none of you are going to sit up tonight to pray for sun tomorrow or for daylight. Because you know that God is ising. You know that God is functioning. You know that God is about His business this very moment, and that in its rightful second, daylight will appear. In its rightful second, the tides will be in or the tides will be out. You know that even if your trees are barren, as they were a month ago, you know right well that within 1 month there will be leaves on them, and you also know that within another month or two there'll be flowers and fruit and berries. Why do you know? Well, of course, you've been witness to it for so long that you know it is so, and you know that behind this visible scene, regardless of the barrenness of the scene, you know that you only have to be patient and the season of fruitage will be there, because you know that there is a law operating in that direction. However, when it comes to our own personal affairs, we have been led to disbelieve this. We have been led to believe that if we sacrifice, if we spend our day in the temple, if we give, if we do this, if we build edifices, if we sacrifice, then God will be led to do something to us. Or if we become good. No, the teaching is that God's rain falls on the just and the unjust. The teaching is, neither do I condemn thee, the woman taken in adultery. And so you see that before you can come to know God aright, you must really overcome most of your religious teachings. And you must begin to see God in a whole new light. You must begin to see that God does not respond to our entreaties, that God does not respond to our pleadings, that God does not respond, period. God is, and God is functioning now. And if there is discord and inharmony in our lives, it has nothing to do with God. It has to do with our failure to comply with the laws of God and bring ourselves under God's grace. It has nothing to do with bringing God into our experience. It has to do with our coming up into God's experience. Communion with God is a step in that direction. And communion means, first of all, knowing that the Father is within you, and then secondly, closing the eyes and keeping your attention within your consciousness, quietly, peacefully, cogitating, meditating. Meditate upon God day and night. Think of God. Try to understand the infinite nature of God. Try to understand that God is no respecter of persons, and God is no respecter of religions. There's no such thing as a Catholic God, a Protestant God, a Hebrew God, or a Vedanta God. There is only God, the Spirit that is within you, whatever your name or nature, color, creed, religion, race, or whatnot. There is only one God, and it is within you. And then you lose all your prejudices and biases and bigotries, and you commence to understand what it means to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and thy neighbor as thyself. For thy neighbor is thy brother. Thy neighbor is thyself, for God is the self of you and the self of your neighbor. Now we're commencing to see God closer, for God now reveals itself as myself, and therefore as thyself. And so there is only one self, which means there is only one life. The life you are living at this minute is the same life I am living at this minute, for there is only one life in this entire universe. The life of the grass is the same life as the life of the orchid or the life of the rose, and the life of the bird and the life of the lion. And as we know this, be assured the lamb can lie down with the lion. Once we know that the same life permeates all, and so it will be in our national and our international relationships. Once we know there is only one life, whether that life appears as a friend or as an enemy, it is still the one life, and our recognition of that stops our hating and enforces our loving, and love is the liberator. Love is the fulfilling of the law. But you can't love until you know that the same God that is the life of your being is the life of your neighbor's being, whether this neighbor is friend or foe. Then you will ultimately see the healing consciousness which realizes there cannot be a diseased life and there cannot be an aged life, because we all have one and the same life, and it is ageless and it is deathless.
So with the next of Master Teacher, I will certainly do that. I don't know what happened. So you see the nature of the talk that Joel does here, or this segment out of his talk is beautifully, say, blending in this what we have shared. So it's unbelievable how this all comes together. It's always to me like a total pleasure to see that. And so it is with the next, say, podcast that we're listening to with Master Teacher is the same. It's like there's of course, everyone has his own expression of it, and which is perfectly all right. Like, it is a certain frequency, in fact, that you're tapping into, that you're receiving, and you are able to do that. And you're say, in fact, this came to you this way, just as it comes to me my way. Like, I'm actually receiving this way, and it doesn't matter. Like, what really matters is that you come into an experience of the communication, that you are opening up to the love of God, giving that to God, loving God with all of your heart, like Joel says. Like, this is the practice. This is where we come back to all the time, because up to that point that you give, you haven't given that, nothing has happened. So you love God with all of your heart. You have no idea how to do that, but suddenly you feel yourself doing it, and that is really a total miracle. And it's beautiful to see that is the easiest thing. In fact, it's so natural, of course.
That's the joy of this lesson, because this lesson, and we're going to read some of it now, is going to tell you that all the human beings are walking around in a literal sense with the kingdom of God within them. And they're manifesting themselves in the chaos of form that disappears in the dust. What did Jesus say in the New Testament? Tear that temple down and I'll rebuild it in 3 days. And from that moment on, they were really after him, weren't they? They were very determined, as you may still be, that I would not be allowed to demonstrate to you my certainty that you're not brick and mortar, my certainty that all of the things that you are formulating within your own mind are just existences of definitions of a long time ago and a long time to come in the ruins of what no longer exists. Now, what you've had to learn from me is you can build out there from all of the ruins you want, and they will result in ruins until you recognize that the kingdom is within you. This is what Lesson 166 is going to say. Let's look at it together. All things are given you. God's trust in you is limitless. He knows his Son. He gives without exception, holding nothing back that can contribute to your happiness. And yet, unless your will is one with his gifts are not received. But what would make you think there is another will than his? Here is the paradox that underlies the making of the world. This world is not the will of God, and so it is not real. Yet those who think it real must still believe there is another will, and one that leads to opposite effects from those that he wills. Impossible indeed, but every mind that looks upon the world and judges it as certain, as solid, as trustworthy and true, believes in two creators, or in one, himself alone, but never what? Never in one God. The gifts of God are not acceptable to anyone who holds such strange beliefs. He must believe that to accept God's gifts, however evident they may become, however urgently he may be called to claim them as his own, is to be pressed to treachery against himself. He must deny their presence, contradict the truth, and suffer to preserve the world that he made. Are you listening to this, humans? Here is the only world he thinks he knows. Here is the only safety he believes that he can find. Without the world he made, is he an outcast, homeless and afraid? He does not realize that it is here he is afraid indeed, and homeless too, an outcast wandering so far from home, so long away, he does not realize he has forgotten where he came from, where he goes, and even who he really is. Yet in his lonely, senseless wanderings, God's gifts go with him, all unknown to him, He cannot lose them, but he will not look at what is given him. He wanders on, aware of the futility he sees about him everywhere, perceiving how his little lot but dwindles as he goes ahead to nowhere. Still he wanders on in misery and poverty, alone, though God is with him, and the treasure his so great that everything the world contains is valueless before its magnitude. What a particular idea. Boy, it's great to read that. Are you aware, perceptual identities out there, what this is offering you? This is the statement about you. And how you feel about the rhetoric, I'm not concerned. What it's actually a statement is a proviso for an entrance into your drama of loneliness and death of a true you. You want to share that together with me? This is why sometimes we revert to parables. There's no question that you believe you are a conceptual self-existence wandering about this world looking for an occupation that will justify your need to retain your own sorry-looking self. And the reason that you reject this message is simply because you may not like the definition of yourself that I'm giving you. I understand that in your lonely wandering, you keep finding relief, don't you? You find moments of happiness with the bodies that are around you, and you share with them the certainty of your own existence, of what you must define as happiness, since in your forlorn idea of the dream of death, you find happiness in pain. You find happiness in loneliness, and you believe that this is what your life is. Okay? You have forgotten that you have been misidentified in a moment, okay, of space-time that denied the entirety of reality, and you're wandering aimlessly about in your determination to hold on to that identity. Do you see how you're identifying yourself there, Mr. Body, Mrs. Anybody? Do you see how you hold on to yourself in your determination to be the containment of that body and find other bodies that share your forlorn admission that you're in this little senseless pain of dark form? Let's share together just a moment this alternative. Let's practice, if we can, just a moment of that realization right there, that you're actually whole and perfect. Good. Could you see that? I got you to stop just for a moment and to step back. See, your mind has been so preoccupied with definitions of yourself, with needs to justify that existence, that the idea that you could begin to practice non-defensiveness, the idea that you could begin to experience alternatives that were not contained within the contingencies of your self-identity is what is occurring. Can you see that?
Wow. So, this is so deep what we're entering into. You can feel that. It's like, that's so deep. Wow. First by Joel too, now by Master Teacher too. It's like, whoa. Interesting to see how that feels. Like, in fact, you have an opportunity to in fact being pushed a little deeper into the drama that you're experiencing in your life. And why is that? You say, like, well, you should lift me up. and it is like, no. Because you are, say, pushed in this darkness, dark ideas of yourself in order for it to be lifted out of it. And it's not about diving as deep as you can into the dark matter, you could say, but there's a real, there's a real change occurring when you're actually aware of where you find yourself. That you see like, oh my God, what have I been thinking? What am I doing? Let's just stop for a moment. So anything that will help you to stop for just a moment, to be aware of what you're doing, is great progress. It's great progress. So it's not about keep on going until something becomes better. No, it is really about stand still and move not. Like this can only change by you giving up what you're doing. And this is the transformative, possibility of the offering, of this class, you could say, of this meeting, of this spiritual healing practice. So the moment that you stop, something can happen. If you keep on going doing the same thing, obviously nothing is going to change. So that is an incredible lesson, but also very deep, very deep. But I love it. So it's like, allow your world to crumble, allow it all to fall apart. Don't try to hold it together. This is really important. So that is basically our starting point today. And from here we go and listen and look at presentations of each other. So that would be the non-public part, or maybe public, maybe not, I don't know. We'll see. So let's take a look at that.